course, many people are waiting in line outside of KAMS and Red Lion. As part owner, I get to do a little, plug KAMS Red Lion. I challenged myself to ask someone on a date, but my palms were sweaty. Pop culture reference, Eminem line. But the reality is, until you do it, until you hold that bat and step up to the plate, there's nothing like the real experience. So I hope this stays recording.
Welcome to the UIUC Talkshow. Our goal of this show is to introduce you to the most interesting people with the most interesting ideas. Today, we're talking to Carmen Rossi. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Good.
Doing quite well.
Good. What are we going to talk about?
So I like to start by focusing before you got to college, before you arrived at this campus. You've mentioned before that you didn't really know what to study and you were doing other things.
Sure.
So who were you before college? What were you like as a child, and what led you here?
Cool question. That's often doesn't come up to go that far back. But yeah, okay. So I obviously went to the University of Illinois. It is a big part of my identity. I am from a town called Frankfort. So Frankfort's in Will County. It's about 25 miles south of the city. Went to a high school called Lincoln Way. Off the top of my head, it kind of was a cool. Maybe because I'm on campus, I'll use words like cool, but I promise my adjectives and synonyms will improve.
Different when you're a lawyer.
They'll improve as we go through this. But it was a appropriate transition into such a big campus, like a Big Ten university. With the high school I went to, Lincoln Way, we had over 5,000 students. My class was over 1,200. As a ninth grader, that's a little of a culture shock, very different than anything you've experienced in life, at least from a suburbs kid. And I was very involved. I was a very involved, active student, student organizations. And the reason I guess I flag that is because that would be a common theme throughout my life. Signing up for programs and clubs and volunteering and, after school. Obviously, there was video game councils, and there was, I'm not that old. There were obviously, TV and cable and great sitcoms back then as there are today, but not subscriptions based. There wasn't Netflix existed in so much as it was physical. They would mail you movies, but social media too. Social media was around when I was in college and stuff, but it wasn't anything like it is today, which is at the forefront. So you had to, if you wanted to meet people, it wasn't through a black screen. It was through, having to just sign up and get engaged. And I sort of always would have considered myself a social person. I liked, my dad was the mayor of our small town, Frankfort. I really appreciated being able to participate, when I was able to participate in adult conversations and just, it's you're practicing without even realizing you're learning, and those skills became assets over time. But then, much like a lot of big high schools, U of I throughout the state, U of I was a big draw. So I was excited to apply, but equally nervous. This was where I wanted to go. And just the concept of like a Big Ten experience, for the Midwest especially, but from coast to coast, we as a conference or a collective of schools, you're going to have a Midwestern sort of charm experience. You're going to have the seasons. You're going to be, unless you are the proverbial townie, you're going to be out on your own for the first time. So yeah, I remember the day I got the letter of acceptance, and I lived. I lived with some friends from Lincoln Way at Bromley. 703, I think, was my freshman year room. Bromley 703. So yeah, that was. It was, and ever since, I still go home. My family's from that area. I like to keep the close ties and stuff, but that's how it started, or where it started, I suppose.
Did the conversations that you participate in, that you mentioned in high school with the adults, was that influential in what you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean, again, I dub it as practicing. And again, at the time, I might not have understood what I was learning to do, but adult conversations, to be a kid and gain interest. That was probably my first lesson at a younger age, when I was having follow-up questions, when adults were making eye contact, when I felt, I didn't know much, but I understood, this is interesting. I'm actually holding conversation. I'm not being talked to. I'm being conversed with. And in recognizing that, and not to where it became a game or not to where I was beyond my years necessarily, it was just something I couldn't experience otherwise. So I was, when I was afforded the opportunity to be in those conversations, I really focused on trying to be interesting. And to do that, I think you would combine some elements of perspective. So if you're in a conversation with adults and you're a kid, you have a unique perspective. That's relatable. Okay, so you're having an adult conversation. In order for me to be interesting, I probably have to somehow relate my perspective into your sort of the ethos of the discussion. So yeah, I still do that today. So how does that evolve over time? I think at that younger of an age, I'd be wearing as much as I could, my adult hat, although it was oversized. And that the syntax, the diction, the tone would be a lot different than when I would talk to friends, peers. Obviously, I would swear less. I still do that today. Today, you wear different hats. You're in different conversations, the seriousness, the degree, the formality. It changes my posture. It changes my, not only word choice, but, the subject matter will differentiate between the industry of conversation. So if I'm talking hospitality and business, or politics and government, with, local electeds or that are on the campaign, and startups. Ideal, or whether I'm teaching in the class, in order for me, I have the same goal now as I did then. Provide interesting conversation that elicits a response, because now we can actually start dialoguing. And then I try not to talk the entire time, because that's what I'm doing right now, and it gets a little boring. But yeah, those are the things that are on my mind.
Yeah, you mentioned these conversations, and I can definitely relate to that. So growing up, every day after school, my mom is an accountant, and she had an accounting office. So every day I would be there with my mom and going to visiting clients, and just them talking about business, that definitely helped that helped me with a level of maturity, like understanding business and understanding what everything is like, while perhaps other friends they were just at home doing homework, or they were just playing some video game or something. And you're right. I mean, even being that young person with these older people, so I became involved in the downtown advisory committee of Naperville.
Yeah.
And I was, I don't know, 15, 16. Everyone's there. It's like they all own business. They're all like 50,
Shout out
60.
Naperville. Yeah.
And then you're there, and they ask you, like, what do you think? Oh, I think this, X, and that. But like that forces you to add the perspective, but also having that interestingness that always proves to be useful no matter where you are.
Sure. And isn't that conversation, I mean, here, the three of us are different backgrounds. So the conversation of business is a culture, right? I mean, it's that sort of, we're having a business conversation. Mm-hmm. And I imagine you didn't say we need a skateboard shop or a GameStop, because that's what they almost expect you to say, because you're into, and I'm only using that as an example, not as a plug to a meme stock because I own it or something, because I don't. But what about your experiences, like coming to the Midwest from different countries and different cultural backgrounds? And like the Midwest is, it's the John Hughes sort of Breakfast Club. See, this is a pop culture reference that none of your peers will understand, I guess. But a lot of his popular movies of the 80s were filmed all in the Midwest, because that's a very cultural sect of our American culture. But how was that? I mean, as opposed to East or West Coast, and maybe this wasn't your first, you moved to Chicago area?
Yes.
And you're straight from
Yes.
India, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How has it been on campus? I mean, what has been your experience? Because like I'm a suburb kid from Illinois who went to the University of Illinois. I am Tom Cruise in Risky Business, another pop culture. That's not your background and story. So how has that been?
I mean, for me, it was definitely
Did you guys already cover this like 38 times on previous podcasts?
No, not really.
I mean, you haven't listened to it, so that really matters.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, for me, it was a totally different like cultural change, because like it didn't matter if I went to the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, because it was all still going to be very different than from where I'm coming from, right? And I mean, I grew up watching a lot of Hollywood movies and TV shows and everything. So I mean, I had a certain idea in my head of what it was going to be like, and the kind of like I was already familiar with the culture. I mean, obviously the culture that they show in dramas and all of that, but
the portrayal of American
exactly
in college life.
Right.
Did you see Animal House?
No, I have not.
Oh, all right. Okay, sorry.
I'll keep that in mind.
Please.
So yeah, I mean, I had my own ideas, but it's a totally different thing once you come here, because you're actually it's like you're in the movie, right? And then you need to
love that. Mm-hmm.
You need to figure it out by yourself. Like at the beginning, I did feel lost, because a lot of the things it would feel like I could not connect with the conversation at all. Like I felt like my peers had different priorities than me, had just totally different things that they cared about, and it was a matter of just like observing and trying to like, in some ways, mimic, or I would say bounce off each other's ideas and cultures and see and like find a middle ground, because I'm still like my ideas are still very much rooted from where I come from.
Is this 2 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
And but there's still a lot of American influence that has still seeped into it, because it's more of a blend now. It's like I would say the best of both worlds in some ways. And yeah, I mean, I think it gets easier with time, obviously, because the more people you meet, the more people you interact with, the more you learn, the more comfortable you start feeling in this environment. And I've been fortunate enough to make some very good friends over these 2 years, meet some wonderful people, and just share all these ideas with so many new people, because people are always excited to learn what another country is like. So they always ask me, oh, how was your high school like, or what did you do when you were growing up? And it's always fun to like share these stories, and I think that's like a good topic to connect and just, I don't know, build relationships. And yeah, like first semester I met him, and like how we met was also really interesting because one day we were both at the dining hall and he just asked me where you're planning on eating. I said I didn't have any plans, so we just like sat down and had like a 2-hour conversation while eating dinner. So I mean that's how we met, and I don't know, like it's these like little things, small things that just happen to you that you would not plan out, but just go on such a long way in shaping who you are and being more comfortable in this environment.
I mean, that story doesn't surprise me, but it's not merely a footnote. It's much more developed. It's a chapter, and I love to brag about the orange and blue in this community. And if I had to have guessed, I would have imagined your experience, which had to be at a minimum intimidating, because of, like I said, it's a very different part of the world.
Right.
But it's a welcoming community. People are excited to meet. And I'm sure those sort of tales are familiar on every campus across the country. But this is a special one, and it's super. Sorry. I was going to say it's super awesome, which is neither super nor awesome of me to say. But yeah, this sort of story, how you guys met, and then in just a short amount of time, and now you've started this podcast, and the university, it's obviously the university is a central theme to this, but it's shaped your lives. It's really cool. It shaped my life.
Yeah.
But
so you arrived here from Frankfurt.
Yeah.
And what was your college major? You live in Bromley, 702 or 703.
I could be wrong, but yeah.
So you were there. What were you like? Were you signing up for all the RSOs? Were you like, when did you start your first business? Just tell me your day-to-day life, like who you were, like
Sure.
were you looking of, like thinking of starting businesses? Like what were you like?
So, there's 40,000 undergrads, and 10,000 graduate students. I mean, it's really a civilization of teenagers. And I'll return to that similar sort of emotion that we each may have felt, and that's the intimidation of it. But relevance and connectivity, I had to assume would make the transition easier, or the comfort level would be expedited a little bit more, a little quicker, I suppose. And in doing so, I don't, as a freshman, that summer going into freshman year, I think I remember coming down here with my mom and meeting a counselor that I was assigned to. And I really don't like to date myself, but while there was a very large, while it was a large part of the experience online, you still met with a counselor. I don't know if they still do that, but you met with somebody.
Right.
And just to talk about your interests as an incoming freshman. And mine were, whatever the other freshmen are doing sounds good. I mean, I didn't have necessarily a track. My dad was an attorney, so the law interest, there was certainly a law interest, but political science, there was liberal arts. Lincoln Hall was where a lot of my classes were. I ended up picking up a concentration in English. I thought, Shakespearean literature and 18th century British fiction, very dense books with unfamiliar words, which I shouldn't say unfamiliar, but not typical in daily conversation for modern times. I loved that stuff. And I think just the practice of reading helped improve my vocabulary, But the interest was business. And so that's, with a liberal arts background and a passion in business, I learned how one complemented the other, absolutely. In trying to remember the call number, maybe Poli-Sci 150. And who knows if that still exists. But I met another student. We were both pretty participatory. We raised our hand or spoke up in class. And I think we would leave class and sort of walk down the quad back to our respective resident towers. And in doing so, as the semester progressed, I think at some point the conversation of what are you doing this summer would come up. And my previous summers, I worked for the Village of Frankfurt, like painting fire hydrants. They give me a truck and a bucket of red paint, or I'd, pick up leaves or twigs or something like. And really, I spent a lot of time dialing into the Howard Stern show of my summers. I tried to get on the radio, but I didn't want to do that. I felt like, okay, that I graduated from the proverbial lifeguard job, so to speak. So we just started talking about maybe going into business, starting our own thing, working for ourselves. And so that bore not my first company, but my first limited liability corporation filed with the Secretary of State, or filed through the state of Illinois, and opening up a bank account and starting an enterprise. Innovative Furnishings was the name. And what we did was dormitories that were built before a certain year, let's just say 1973, because that was a politically active year in this country. Their mechanical units, heating or air conditioning, jettisoned into the dorm room. So now, the efficiencies are in the ducts, or, maybe you had a window unit, but the ones that came out, well, it would limit your already small unit space by more. So we designed lofts, like bed lofts, around these units. And we paid an engineering student who was probably a sophomore or junior to sort of present what is very basic but professional looking design. We went to Western Michigan. We went to Southern Illinois. There was some University of Illinois. We went to universities in the Midwest and sought out the housing. So the director of housing or the dean of housing, and said, hey, do you have any dorms that have this issue? Because we can sell lofts, so to speak. And we'll design around them. Just give us access. And, there's sales, that's sales. And when you're 18 years old, there's an issue of credibility. So, you had to, I don't like necessarily the fake it till you make it, but you certainly had to have the confidence that you could accomplish or accomplish what you set out to do. So, he and I were the sales leg, which would have been the spring of my freshman year, going to these different universities and presenting. And then over the summer, we started a website, had a PayPal link, and I actually went back to work for the Village. That was my summer job again. And I think sometime in June, my partner calls me, he says, I just checked the orders. You got to quit your job. We've got a ton of orders. I think these lofts were, let's say, under $200 or $200. Well, there's tens of thousands of dollars in this account. So there's tons of orders coming in. And we've only built one. And we built it non-efficiently, which is to say from scratch, but took us a while to build the prototype. and there that you want to scale. So we launched and bought all the equipment, making a ton of mistakes, right? You're just going to Lowe's and buying equipment. You're not being selective, considerate, or there's no manual, so to speak. There's no startup kit that was handed to us. And we hired friends, which is amateurish because nobody knows what they're doing and we're all kids figuring it out. And we fulfilled orders and delivered them to these universities. And there were horrific nightmares and getting yelled at and stressful situations and 7 days a week of 15-hour days. And stress doesn't necessarily bring the best version out of yourself, especially if you're not versed in it, if you're not familiar with stress. And I want to make sure I come back to that point. But it was, I think we made a couple of dollars. Again, probably a loss and waste of resources, waste in time, waste in allocation, waste in inefficiencies. But you're learning. I mean, I as an academic or as an educator, I obviously place so much value on the continuation of learning, whatever it is. So a lot of that for me is bore through mistakes, and we made a bunch. But from there, I had the taste and would start a number of more companies while in college. Painting companies, spring break companies, that really helped sort of gain some popularity on campus.
In what ways?
Which, for me, I think just my personality, if in Champaign, the popular job was working at the shoe factory, I would have worked at the shoe factory. Like it wasn't about money necessarily, though everyone needs it, especially as a college student. Just having a couple of dollars in your pocket changes your experience. But I wanted to be social. I wanted to engage. I liked the idea of having friends that were upperclassmen. I went to the sporting events and thought it was such a sensation to watch us achieve success, but then also see those same folks in your classes. Like that's just, which is a very American thing to do. We seem to idolize the talented and popular. It's one of our flaws as Americans, I guess. That was very exciting. So, I mean, I did join student organizations. I was in the Greek community. I begrudgingly got a bar job at a place called C.O. Daniels, which was 608 Daniel Street. It's no longer there. All of Daniel Street, it was sort of wiped out. It was where the old KAMS was, which is gone since 2018. Relocated. But yeah, and then the spring break company, my model was, I never really possessed the intelligence to come up with a new idea. And the University of Illinois is heralded for having so many students that create new ideas. I mean, there's campuses that didn't exist that many years ago based on this idea of innovation and design, and certainly in the technologies, but that wasn't me. I just didn't have the intelligent design in order to create a new. What I would do is explore markets that are already successful and determine whether there was market share available, or if I could, compete with them and knock them out or curb them because I'm local. So Spring Break are national companies. I just started their model. I studied their model. The painting company was a national company. It was called College Works. I don't know if it's still around, but I just would study their model, realizing that it's national and there is not intimate relationships being developed on campus. And I would just start them local. And really, painting and travel services, kind of on opposite spectrums, but we would immediately recognize where the shared nucleus of sales, of marketing, of and somewhat of a consumer or workforce. So I definitely leveraged the student organizations. I leveraged the bar community and staff. I leveraged student orgs, Greek community, found sales reps, and we planned trips to, our first destination was Acapulco. And I found somebody to handle the chartered planes and the insurance and the sort of hotel setups, the rooms. And then we took the sort of sales side, and I think our first year, I don't know if we broke 100, but over the years we would reach thousands of trips. And you learn more things about scaling. We would go to different universities, apply the same sort of model. So yeah, U of I was grounds for that, for sure.
How do you convince people to join whatever you were doing? Because not only had you needed to convince them, because they would see you as a as a peer student.
Of course.
So how do you convince them that what you were doing was worthwhile for them? And yeah, so walk us through what you told them exactly and how you convinced them.
Well, yeah, sometimes I'd be pitching, especially as a freshman, sophomore, upperclassman. So you're right, it really is a pitch. And I could look back at that and say, wow, that's really when I first started to hone in on the importance and value of a perfected pitch. And that comes with, you could read all the books you want on it, and as engineers, you could become subject matter experts. But the reality is, until you do it, until you hold that bat and step up to the plate, there's nothing like the real experience. So my goal was to excite based on, before I talked to any of the economics, before I got into it was just, let's talk about the product and let's talk about everything we love about, let me get you excited about spring break. Let me get you, which, by the way, I could do just the same, and let me get you excited about painting. But what is the excitement around it? Well, it's experience. Well, it's resume building because you're going to be a manager as a sales rep. We're framing it differently than just you're going to be intimately involved in the numbers, in the pro forma, in the goals. I'm not just feeding you because my goal is to get you invested in it, because that's how I'm going to beat the nationals. They're going to be read this, watch this training video or manual. Click on this link and learn about us in 28 minutes. So I'm going to provide a much more intimate presentation, get you sort of excited about the idea of success. So that's what it is. It's as much as it is about familiarizing yourself with the product, and we'll just keep returning to it, but between spring break or painting, the products are very different. But let's talk about success. That's something where we can all I don't know what you think about spring break, and I don't really care what you think about painting. But if we could talk about success and get you excited there, then that'll be a formula or a theme as a baseline. So that's, and I think as college students, we could probably go outside and all over campus, engage positively with people interested in the conversation of success. The product may probably, well, I shouldn't say probably, but it might not matter as much. We'll get to the product. Let's just talk about, allocation of our time and resources. let's set up a meeting. Let's rent out a classroom and set up a meeting, and each of us go and find 3 or 4 friends and talk about, a student-born company started here on campus that if we meet some goals together, if we're in this together as peers, then maybe this will be more worthwhile than whatever shekels we make at the end of it.
So was the promise or the incentive just the promise of future success?
I think the incentive was the excitement of success. We're college students, and we have our food cards and our class schedule, but maybe we are entrepreneurs. Maybe we're more than that. Maybe we go out on Green Street on Saturday night, and maybe we go to the basketball game on Thursday, but maybe also we're business professionals. And maybe, I just think that idea of, I understood my audience because I was a part of it, and I kind of knew what excited me about it. And I thought, I bet you there's a lot of people on a campus of higher learning where, while we may have different backgrounds, we have similar goals.
Right.
And so let me tap into that. And really, I would start 10 companies, little. Companies sounds, they were duly organized in the state of Illinois, but a company can be 2 people, as you guys know. And so a lot of different, and really what we'd talk about is just analyzing a market. We're in a marketplace. There's 40,000 consumers plus 10,000. What are their interests? And how can we deliver those interests? And can we participate in their consumer choices? I could talk about that forever. And I think there's a lot of people. I think the 3 of us could talk about that for a while, and we don't really know each other at all. But just that's where we were. I knew we were on a campus, and I knew people were training themselves every day in the classroom. For some reason, people wore their pajamas while they were training, but I like to sort of dress. But I was very confident that there would be a lot of people who thought similarly or had similar interests, and then we become effective salesmen and promoters. It wasn't necessarily you're the CEO and you're the CFO. Let's not get hung up on playing house. Let's talk about being peers and activating a base. So yeah,
there are a lot of tools today that can help you gauge the market interest, right? Which we can maybe post on Reddit or something, and we can still get some amount of, let's say, a decent opinion of what people may like or may not like. But when you were starting this, how did you gauge what people wanted? How did you know that, okay, if you do this, there will be consumers at the end? Did you do some sort of, you just go to the quad and talk to people, or how did you know what people wanted?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, we're paying attention to pop culture. We're paying attention to our classmates' dialogue. I know if class started at 4, I would always kind of show up early. But that's just out of habit, not doing market research. But those conversations before and after class, you learn a lot. It's what people did recently.
Right.
Again, social media was not as prevalent. It
Exactly.
certainly existed, but it's not. TikTok didn't. So, in paying attention, the model I think the product was people. I don't know if I looked at the product it wasn't about the bottle of water and how we're going to shape and sell the water.
Right.
Product was, okay, our consumers, what can we sell them? How can we elevate their experience? And how can we get in front of them and talk to them about something? And through that, we're going to get data. I think the college experience is, this can't be a T-shirt, and I don't think I will excite other colleagues that are educators, but perhaps I might not rank academics as the number one or primary purpose of college. It's definitely up there. And maybe it's tied for first. But it's really discovering yourself. And discovering yourself if yourself is a variable and if that variable is unknown, it has to be through dialogue. It has to be through trying, you might have an idea of someone you want to date and then go on the date and realize, I didn't like that person at all. But you did it because that's what you thought you liked. You might try a cuisine or not try a cuisine thinking you wouldn't like it.
Right.
And try. So that's sort of experiential. It's an obvious statement, but I don't think it's at the forefront of students' minds as much as it should be. Because you should really be pushing yourself, if not to go through the rudimentary process of socializing, but really improving yourself. It's betterment of yourself because you're sharpening your skills. You're converting your skills into assets by understanding, okay, I understand this really well, and I am expending considerable resources, namely time, in improving this. And that's got to start in college. I think our dreams, or at least mine, but I imagine a lot of people's dreams are way beyond their capacities. We dream big. And could I have achieved any one of those dreams? Maybe the dream of starting a company or the dream of growing a company. Could I have achieved that on my own? Well, I already admitted I'm not intelligent enough to create a new product into the stream, and I certainly have described scenarios in which I didn't do it on my own. So if we're dreaming beyond our capacities, in order to achieve that success, we need others. But the cool thing about that is others need us. We are, particularly on the college campus and measuring the student experience, we want to be social. And we want to learn, yes, but I think we kind of want to fail too a little bit. It hurts at first, it stings. Hopefully it's not permanent, but it's it's such a valuable lesson in developing to where when it does come time to count, which by the way isn't senior year or your first year out, this idea of placing so much pressure on, I've lived a few years, now I have to make sure that those few years account for the next decades. It's silly. But certainly when the time does come, we were prepared through experience. So,
yeah, a lot of the learning has to happen through dialogue, and that's the only perhaps the only actual learning is what you learn when you talk to the students, not necessarily to the professor lecturing you. But I do want to come back to this idea because there's a lot of interesting things I want to ask. But in one sentence, what was your go-to place to take people on dates when you were on campus?
I am a Biaggi's on Neil.
Okay.
So it's I believe it's Biaggi's. So you take Neil,
Yeah.
And then movies.
Really?
Yeah, because from a movie, you're stuck, which is good. You're not forced to talk, or at least you shouldn't be, which is good for amateurs like me, because I needed to organize my thoughts. And then you had something built in to talk about afterwards.
Smart.
So yes. Whereas just, one-on-one, I might be mumbling or stumbling within the first few sentences. So yeah, that was my go-to. Mm-hmm.
Biaggi's. Never heard of that place.
It's an Italian restaurant.
Yeah, Italian restaurant. It's still here. Yeah.
Still there. It's No, okay, so exactly, that's exactly like the reason why I like this place so much is because you have 50,000 people here, and that's 50,000 people that you can test. If you find a way to give them what they want. You have 50,000 potential users to test whatever idea you have, and then you can just, if 50,000 people like that there's a chance that 1 million people, 10 million people, the whole country might actually like
If 50 people like it, it might mean that 50,000.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I have a couple questions. So the first question is, if you were here today, what business would you start? And the second, I guess, and then answer that one and then
Wow, it's a really good question. So I teach here, so I'm familiar with modern classrooms and students, and at least some portion of my lectures are roasts, and it's me roasting my students, but I get so worked up because I feel like I know what they don't know because I've been through it, and I know that classroom experience is super important. But it's not I can't tell you off the top of my head any specific lecture that I remember. Educators I don't believe that in order to be a remarkable educator, which is to say somebody that left a mark on a student, you have to be a subject matter expert. It's important, obviously, and it's an assumption that you know more than the people who've probably never heard it before. That's why they enrolled in the class. But it's your ability to educate and to actually make a connection with students. And those are the classes that I remember. And if I could go back, I remember your question. Don't get nervous. What business would I start? Yeah. But if I could go back, I don't think I would have been able to get in. But I think one of the coolest degrees you can get, man, I'm capping myself out on the word cool. I think that was number 5 for
and
this
you also
podcast.
said cap.
So would have been engineering, because you're being trained to look at situations in a very specific and very particular manner, and it translates into so much industry, not limited only to engineering, but most certainly business. And it's an intense academic journey that should also allow some time to enjoy college, which is to say it's not so rigorous that you really didn't go to college. So if I was starting, it shouldn't go unnoted that my first business, I paid an engineering student maybe $150 or something, but I didn't really know. I was an upperclassman. They were in engineering. They helped draw because I didn't. I definitely didn't. And I would stay on campus for 7 years with the political science and English concentration. And then I worked for the DIA, Division of Intercollegiate Athletics, and got a master's within the RST. And so I spent a pretty significant time, probably 1 year too long, because 7 years is a while. I tied Van Wilder before going to law school. But I really do think about today, it's a lot harder. Social media, is excellent at their job. I don't blame social media. We should be, we do champion its success, but its stated goal is to get people using it as often as possible. They are doing a great job at that. So they are doing an excellent job. As consumers and users, and namely that 18 to 22, although it's becoming earlier and earlier, I think the usership between 13 and 16 is growing every day. But that is dominating too much of our time. And it's really taking away from the college experience. I mean, I challenged myself to ask someone on a date, but my palms were sweaty. Pop culture reference, Eminem line. And of course I was nervous, and a lot of times I asked up, which was my own mental deficiency, but I always thought, she'll never say yes, but now you have to do it. And the idea of rejection became okay, acceptable. It's a data. It's a learning moment. But it wasn't done on the phone, right? It wasn't. I didn't slide in the DMs. I didn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't watch a story, see where that person was. It's almost stalkerish, but you can gauge where people are at with live real time. Then you just had to go out, and I am not only nostalgic because that plays into American culture, but I think I would have really, I get a little frustrated for my students if I'm noticing that there's not as much organic relationship forming as opposed to everything done with the use of a digital wingman or a technological wingman. So I probably would try to start something that flushed out experience, some sort of experiential pop-up, a rotating pop-up. I think subscription base is great because now I'm getting recurring revenue. And if I keep my price point low, you might forget about it on your credit card, or even more hopefully it's on a parent's credit card and they don't even know what it is.
Even better.
Right. And yet by experience, I'm creating some, and by the way, this is completely off the top of my head. So I don't, as we form it, we might realize that
There's something wrong
that it's not going to get picked up on Shark Tank. But through experience, I am imagining some FOMO element, like I've got to be a part of that. I'm incorporating social media, but I'm trying to say this is, the anti-social media experience. And I think through that and through pop-ups, and because I have so many assets, because I have a meetup on the quad, because I have studios like this, I have things that I technically have access to for free because of, this concept of tuition. I'd try to maximize those. When you can start a company that has considerable resources at no cost, I will invest in that. So yeah, I think that would be, as I started talking about the college experience and what it is today, there might be this desire of, I am kind of sick of the phone, or that sounds different. I will go check that out. And if to be a member, it was $5 a month and I had 50,000 potential users. That's great.
Okay, I've been dying to do something like this, and you literally described what I've been thinking. Okay, so tell me more. So pop-up, where's that happening? So people are subscribing to you.
Why would people pay? I mean, I'm sure, if they want that experience, sure
Yeah,
they'll pay.
I don't know, by the way. We're
Right,
figuring this out
exactly.
together.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, as a student, would you pay to put down your own phone?
As a student, would you, if you didn't, okay, so let's talk about why you would continue to pay and subscribe. And we're in the experiential, almost pop-up.
Sure.
We're probably not announcing till the day of, right? And that kind of creates this, my price point is not so high that it curbs another choice. If I'm at $5 a month, I'm not saying, I'd rather eat this month than lose. So you're not competing as a measure of choice.
$4.99. That's
Exactly. And if you don't know what it is yet, it's like, I wonder what they're going to do next month. I mean, you're kind of creating this, if I didn't like last month's, I'm going to stay on because if I don't, I'm not going to get the SMS text, or I'm not going to get the alert that says, join us at this quad for such and such event. What could be an experiential, low-cost event? Some sort of washable, non-toxic paint where the three of us spend the entire weekend filling up super soakers of different colored paint. And it's all, nothing is toxic. There's that, whatever that paint is.
Sure,
let's just assume. And we do water balloons, and we spend just all weekend, and our fingers are ready to fall off, and we're tired. But we show up and we say, wear a white t-shirt and white. And there's also markers. But now we're students amongst our peers. And whether we're spraying each other with different colors paint, whether we're drawing on our white shirts, and now we're walking around with art, and it's unique art, and fashion is a big trend, and like the sort of organically created, like one of a kind, that's a huge trend on social media and TikTok. So now I'm sporting the shirt that, I wore, I'm wearing the clothes that was created, this and that. I don't know, would anybody go to that? We're hitting a lot of goals in that it is social. And when I say social, the corporate synonym is networking. And we should always be networking. I have yet to read a quality academic journal which suggested that networking was a negative or bad. So yeah, I think, that's off the top of my, and then we're pushing ourselves to imagine different experience. Maybe there's a volunteerism effort. Maybe it's, it can't be a chore. Maybe once we provide enough data saying, well, we have 400 users that are active, which means they've returned at least once. We're going to Busey Bank, or we're going to Jimmy John's. We're getting corporate sponsor. We're creating budgets. Through those budgets, we're expanding what our activities can be. Okay, now the three of us have $3,500 to figure out what we can do. And maybe through your $4.99, it's a whole, maybe all the food is provided. So now there's all this free food for $5 a month. I mean, that could be.
Yeah, it's funny because I've done a lot of projects and everything seems to be leading up to this. So, I actually created a Twitter account that gives free food on campus. And basically how it works is that if you're walking on the quad and you see like free pizza, you open your phone and you submit the form and free food. And there's over 1,000 followers in the account. And it's, so like I have the distribution. So it's just like easy distribution that I could get for this thing. And like, hey, pop-up thing or whatever the name would be. I actually created like a franchise, like a spin-off thing from there. It's like UIUC.
Is there revenue?
No, I mean
there's no. It's
crowdsourced.
It's crowdsourced. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But it has a lot of people that could serve as distribution, which is important for whatever thing I do.
The most important.
Exactly. So, and and another thing I did was it's called UIUC Free Food, and another I think 2 weeks ago for fun I created UIUC Free Friends. Same format just for friends. Didn't quite work out, some friction there, something I need to figure out, but not everything you do has to be super successful. But okay, so one thing would be, how do you prevent this thing of I guess so first would be getting the users, which you could do through FOMO and whatever else. But then the next thing would be like, how do you make it cool enough that people are like interested in it and not just painting,
cringy,
whatever. Like that's not cool. Like I'm busy or like whatever. So like because like once you have enough people that okay this is cool, like I want to do it, like game over. But in the beginning it's like why?
Yeah, I think that's where the creativity, the resources of time in our meetings should be front loaded heavily in marketing and creativity. So we're making an assumption that we've presented the prospect of the product in a eye-attention manner. I would probably do it through brand ambassadors. So I would recruit people who have large social media followings in different, sects of the campus. And then your follow-up would be, okay, well then how do you recruit those people? you're starting in some sort of incentive capacity. So that can be at the most grassroots through, it could be an equitable sort of venture that vests after certain usership and consistency and commitment. It can be, if you have a startup budget, it could be very transparent and economic. But yeah, brand ambassadors would be the fastest way to capture the most amount of people. Identifying them shouldn't be difficult because the community is broken up into very clear, just look at the numbers.
Sure.
This many people are interested in the sporting events. This many people do register for RSOs, which are published. This many people are waiting in line off of outside of KAMS and Red Lion. As part owner, I get to do a little, plug KAMS Red Lion. I don't know if either of you know that or whatnot, but it's part of my writer. So yeah, I think there's ways to identify where that is, and what I'll do. Some of the things I'm interested in today. So I have over 70 companies. And again, a company is just from 1 to several hundred in different industries. What I really like to spend a lot of my time talking about today is how I can leverage and collaborate between the different brands. Because you have a foundation, an establishment, and an interested consumer base. And A does, as does B. A and B mutually exclusive. Okay, now how
can you combine them?
Yes. I would start there for here. I mean, it's really what we're talking about too. How can I collaborate with how can UIUC food or UIC free people collaborate with another sort of startup or Twitter handle or page or Barstool Illini? How can I take, it's going to cost me a cup of coffee to bribe them for a 15-minute meeting where let's just start talking. Let's just start throwing out ideas. And if 15, 20 minutes goes by and neither of us are stimulated, let's just get out of here. But I think through brand collaboration association, that would be one of the earlier ways I would look at launching. Yeah.
So that's for friends experience and so on. But the other thing that I think it's also a need, it's sort of like the more romantic aspect of it, which is kind of a weird thing to get in. I mean, you had the courage to ask this girl out, which I'm curious. Where was this, and how did you get the courage to do it? Which I think you mentioned earlier that having that courage led you to having that overcoming the fear of failure. I would even say that if you ask a girl out, people say I want to change the world or whatever. But if you're able to ask someone out, then you'll definitely be able to change the world, because if you can do that, you'll definitely be able to talk to investors or raise your hand in the class or whatever.
It's a great way to look at it.
So before we get to that idea, I'm curious, where was this?
Sure. Well, I mean, was 5'9", 145 pounds. I think that's probably what I was as a freshman.
Okay.
I had my braces out in high school, probably senior year, but I had glasses, which is to say I wasn't the starting quarterback on the football team. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
I remember walks after class. To me, I have first this, then this. I mean, there's a whole algorithmic roadmap that I've drawn out on my whiteboard. To the person you're asking, it's just live. I mean, they're just after class, I remember walking away from the quad toward out of my way because I'm at Bromley and there, but I'm just walking. I really liked, I think it was I was a mama's boy, and I was very, I had a great relationship with my parents. To just be dropped off in a town and live on my own where I'd never cooked a meal for myself. Jolting, sure, but really exciting. In Champaign, Urbana, as you guys are aware, Champaign, that local ordinance that allows 19 and 20-year-olds to enter into an adult setting that is there to be very social, particularly if you're not of age to drink, is could be scary, could be outside of your comfort zone, but you're checking a lot of boxes as to learning and understanding, and conversations are fast, and there's a ton of different groups, and it's a great learning ground for social interaction. And I can remember their names. I was definitely rejected, of course, on some occasions. The most horrifying part was when they accepted, because now I got to figure out, like, oh shit, now what? Right. All of that led to just the confidence of being able to present to investors, as an attorney, I have a law firm. We have lawyers. My firm has lawyers and lobbyists. We're engaged with talking to politicians. We're convincing them to, whether it's shaping policy or looking at infrastructure needs. And, you have to be able to speak passionately, and the intimacy or romanticism, to use your word, of engaging conversation can't be faked. And if it can, it won't be forever. Eventually, it will show through that you're seeking simply a means to an end, as opposed to the passion of the subject. Well, consider when asking someone out on a date, your subject is you. And the prospect of, having a great time. You're never asking anyone out if they'd want to go out and be miserable. That's not your ask. You're saying, hey, do you want to have a really fun time? Or, do you want to laugh and smile and talk about things that might interest us? That sounds wonderful. And you're doing so with the passion of what your product is, and your product is yourself. And I understood that then through experience. I could tell you it's the same today. The disingenuous date is not one that ends up in however dates are supposed to end up. So I don't know what you lose by being bold in college. I know what you lose by not paying attention in class. I know what you lose by not going to class, regardless of how well you did on the previous exam. I know what you lose by dressing in pajamas all the time. I know what you really could lose in the opportunities available at U of I by letting those 4 years go without putting yourself in terrifyingly awkward and uncomfortable positions. It's got to be part of it, because failure is welcomed here. Right? There is hardly any consequence. Even a bad grade can be made up. After college, it's a little bit different. And you're not given as much freedom, or I shouldn't say freedom, you're not given as many chances or as much rope, so to speak, to run. So I obviously believe that so much that I extended my stay here for a few extra years. And I really sought out, for me, I took out I had to take out student loans, but I was making money. So there wasn't this sense of urgency to have to go start my career. And if I could do so while continuing to learn, I'd really get down on myself if I missed class. Just because I understood, like, it's just, and hardly when you miss a class or skip a class, whatever you did in that 50 minutes wasn't great. I mean, what'd you really do? I mean, you watched another episode of Wednesday on Netflix, so, yeah, I just, and you make the most of your time, and so long as you understand that, and just so long as you go into it, knowing that failure is present. It's definitely one of the multiple choice possibilities in every sort of problem we seek to solve. So once you accept that, it shouldn't be intimidating at all. Easier said than done, I suppose. But no, yes, did I lose you like 8 sentences ago?
No,
it's just me talking.
No, I agree. Like, it's very easier, like much easier said than done, because I've started saying that, but when it actually comes down to it, it does get hard to like consciously fail, and I don't know. I think I love the idea that it's perfect. Like these 4 years are supposed to be your test ground. Like this is the time where you're supposed to make failures, but sometimes you forget that. Sometimes, like your classes or that environment just makes you feel like you're not supposed to fail. You're just supposed to excel at what you're doing. And in some ways, failure is discouraged because it's not seen as a stepping stone. It's seen as a fault or something that's wrong or something that you should be knowing. So I guess breaking out of that mentality is very important while being here.
Well, let's define success and failure then. Whether you want to say that it's on the grading scale, which puts A and B at 80 to 90, or if it's just yes or no, which let's just say is 51-49, then whatever the metric as a percentage basis that we're defining success as, we're at least saying it's not 100, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we've at least established by any acceptance of those parameters. Therefore, failure is absolutely present. No different than good days and bad days. I have never met, I have traveled with billionaires and also the wildest, most successful people. I have never met anyone who only has good days. Mm. Of course there's bad days. The goal is to have more good days than bad days. Right. And we're going to achieve that really through the repetition of practice. I mean, we could use a sort of tired analogy in Michael Jordan's, not making the team, struggling in high school, going to college, but every day practicing free throws, and then through just, I don't know if there's any more of a mundane task than just the exercise of free throws, but through that, I think he perfected it. If you are 20 years old, and if you're imagining the 27-year-old version of yourself as some titan of the industry, then it didn't happen when you were 26. I mean, I was very conscious of success not needing to be achieved immediately, but success has to have clues. Like there has to be some sort of identifiable roadmap. I could lead you very quantitatively, well, and qualitatively, but I could lead you certainly through the steps that led to where I am today. You wouldn't be shocked. I mean, we won't bore the process, but I could say, here's everything I did, here's the timing of it, here are the successes, here are the failures, here's what I have now. As engineers, you'd be like, yep, that checks out. But it was the path. We focus so much on the
end result.
The knockout punch. Mm-hmm. That's the video. It's the kick to the head where the guy's. But what we missed, it was everything that led to that. Like, we don't watch those videos. We don't see the diet regimen, the tireless practice. But we know when we stop and say, well, come on, it's not that kick. It was we would all nod our heads. That's why we're intelligent enough to be here. But that's not, so if we accept that, which you fundamentally do, then you, of course, would accept that you have to practice your free throws. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't be intimidated by missing one. It's just, I hate to say that, I hate to deminimize the romance of human interaction. And I don't just mean in dating, I mean in friendship or in peer-to-peer studying, as just a rule of numbers. Like it's just, it is obviously more than that. But you gotta just keep diving back in. At least you are forgiven entirely when in college. That's what you're supposed to be doing, I think.
What have you learned about human interaction from owning many restaurants?
Hospitality companies.
Yeah.
You said KAMS and Red Lion. What have you learned about human interaction? What is different? What is the same, no matter where you are?
Well, it's not about me. I don't necessarily build for my desire. I pay attention very much. So if I'm doing a restaurant, so I have a lot of restaurants in a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago, now in New York, downstate. You have to know what your market is. So you're starting, but what does that mean? That doesn't just mean the eye test necessarily of, well, I see a Italian restaurant, I see a pizza bar, I see a sports bar. There's nothing French here, I'll build French. I mean, it's a little bit more. I think it's dialoguing with the community, asking neighbors, geo-fencing or geotag, studying through those geotags, the most tagged activities in the area. What I'm really talking about is listening. I think a lot of times entrepreneurs have converted their thesis into a law at the beginning, and they're just going to force the facts into delivering what they believe they want. I actually start with a very blank landscape. What I may think is going to work may not, and that's just, having the assurance that a pivot is not a failure. We can imagine tons of examples in business where people are holding on emotionally, but to an idea that is not working. They're not pivoting. They're overly convinced that their idea is right. You have to be open, and you have to actually listen and not just force the facts as you want to hear. So it shouldn't be a surprise at this juncture of our discussion that I am a people person. And, when I just launched a clothing company, and out of LA, Los Angeles. I know nothing about fashion. I've never taken a course, within that industry. I don't have any experience with fabric or design. That said, I pay attention. It's a frequent part of people's conversation. It's something everybody thinks about every day. What they're wearing, what they want to shop for, it's a part of your everyday life. And we're seeing through so many popular brands the collaboration. I mean, that's Supreme is only a brand of collaboration. That's their whole business model. We're just going to collaborate with other popular, they've done from McDonald's to Nike to, Tiffany's. Those are three wildly different. So I'm really interested in that, right? It's not that it's not that I had necessarily an interest in fashion specifically, but I am interested in what everybody is thinking about every single day. And I think the barriers to entry, if they were looked at through like a mononuclear, like through myself, there's huge barriers of entry, i.e. I don't know anything about it. But if going back to, freshman year, if I can reach out to peers, colleagues, and buy them a cup of coffee and just start talking and sharing ideas and what I think and how I'd like to what I think, how I think it can work. And would you want to join me? Again, my dreams are beyond my capacities, but through others, they can be converted into a success. So yeah, I mean, that's very consistent. I knew nothing about real estate until I started a real estate company. Now, I'm making a lot of assumptions there. It's kind of a jerk I'm kind of a jerk by, suggesting that if you're interested in something, just launch a company. However, what I am saying is that part of my algorithm, a big chunk of it, is just identifying what interests people and how I can participate. Knowing that I'm going to have to work with others who are experts or who are very versed. So probably engineers.
So what have you found from these years of experience about what makes most humans tick? Is there any common thread between all of your companies that in some ways brings it all together and is still serving in some ways a common mentality or purpose?
Yes. For starters, we mentioned this concept of experiential startup. Take hospitality. There's well over 5,000 liquor licenses in the city of Chicago. Whereas perhaps in the past, going to a restaurant was perhaps nourishment or sustenance. It was a warm meal or a cold pint. It's way more than that now. Now it is a experience, and there's so much optionality that it's everybody's had a really great burger. Why should I come to your place? And so what I really try to hone in on is I can't be everything to everyone.
Right.
But I can imagine that everyone is here for some reason, whether it's a after work, meeting with an associate, or a 20th anniversary, or grandma's birthday, or a long week, or a really tragic life occurrence where you just need to get out. We, in all of our meetings, are focused in training staff to read body language and understand that, most times people are coming out to have a memorable experience. We're not there to be their memorable experience.
Right.
We're there to heighten their memorable experience. That is, if you approach any business of retail, I'd recently gotten into cannabis. I know nothing about it. I don't really like it as a user. I've tried it, but it's a retail experience. And there's going to be in this state a lot of dispensaries that are opening up as they release more and more licenses. So it's the same exercise. Forget that I'm not a subject matter expert on it or am a developed user necessarily, but it really wouldn't matter. What the focus is bringing in these, elevating the consumer's experience. So one way to sort of, if we were to have titles to each of these segments, maybe the answer to your question for me would be what versus why. I think about what versus why. It's my own sort of, I wouldn't call it a defense mechanism, but it's something for me to, it's on my checklist to make sure I've addressed it. Everyone can tell you what they do. What is it that you do? Well, we can all answer. I'm an analyst, I'm a nurse, what do you do? I'm a lawyer. Why are you doing it? You shouldn't have to pause. Unless your pause is because you're formulating a concise and efficient answer. But the why you do it is your purpose, and it is your passion. And if you can't explain if I can't convince you why I'm doing something, if the three of us were to partner up on a new venture and I pitched my idea, I pitched what it was, if I couldn't convince the why, well, then we kind of have the answer as to whether we should pursue it. And it's so simple, but the why is meaty. That's where the meat of it really is. So the why we're doing something is, and where that passion stems from, on a retail basis, is definitely from the consumer experience.
Have you noticed, or are you targeting those sectors of society that people will be willing to pay for an elevated experience?
Yeah, I mean, the difference between, I'm going to make sure I get this right, Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z, which is going to be, 16 to 50, is significant. That's not a very earth-shattering premise. However, based on the product, I have to decide who I'm gearing this toward. And rare is if I were to own the bulls, I might very easily cast a net wide enough for X, Millennial, and Z. But if we're talking about, a specific product or retail experience, and if we are imagining whether I'm sort of highlighting or targeting somebody for the elevated, absolutely. And I think no matter what our product is, and whether it was spring break, whether it was painting, I'll keep it in there, or hospitality, cannabis, clothing, or UIUC free food, there might be what would be the valuable economic consideration is imagining a premium subscription, where you're only talking to a much more narrow. But to me, everything is about, if we were to launch our company in the first semester, we did $10,000, all I'd want to talk about is saying, okay, let's say we don't increase our usership at all. Let's say we just maintain our usership, that our users come back. That's pretty good. Now, let's focus on that $10,000. I want to increase revenue. Zuckerberg just said it. I told you this was my third podcast this week, so I'm trying not to overlap conversation because it drowns out content. But Zuckerberg had recently just talked about the year of efficiency, and really what he was talking about is, as a result of the pandemic and given the massive size of our user base, we're probably not going to increase that much from 3.74 billion people. But I do, as an obligation to my shareholders, have to imagine how I'm going to increase my revenue. He's going to do it through efficiency. That's where we're seeing all the layoffs, right? Okay, I don't know if my revenue is going to go up, but I'm going to increase my net by becoming more efficient. Musk is doing it. He's laying everybody off. Everybody's just laying off in tech because they're tightening the belt. Our consideration may be, how are we going to increase revenue with the same number of users? And that might be through premium subscription. AMC just announced yesterday.
Like the cost per seating.
Yeah, the cost per seating, right. I think they're saying, okay, our consumer base is X. We're projecting a 2 or 1% increase. Maybe it's stagnant. How can we increase the sort of revenue? I love those conversations. That's where it's really fun. Where you already have a product in the marketplace. It's breathing. It's living. It's daily. How can I increase my revenue through some sort of premium add-on? Is that
right?
Yeah.
You're a very interesting person because you're different. You have a very different philosophy than I may have, in the sense of how you do business. And obviously, I don't know anything. I haven't done anything with my life, and you obviously have. But usually, when I think of like new projects and businesses and things like that, I usually ask myself, like, okay, or don't even ask myself. Like, well, I just like, okay, what do I want? What do I need? And then I just go build it. And if that's true, it's probably true for other people. And in your case, you don't really. I mean, you do, but it's not a significant portion of what you do or how you do it. Is that you're really good at paying attention to what people want and what they need, and then you tailor to that. You're kind of like an amplifier of whatever signal. So like you hear the signal, and then you build the amplifier. So whatever wave is coming, you build the surfing company that, okay, here.
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right. You're right for noticing that. And what you're really saying is that you are talented and intelligent enough to create something on your, give me a second here, to create something. I am not. I can't, I can't, what I want, I can't build. So yes, I, as a result, do sort of just fixate on what everybody else is interested in. Yeah, that's right.
So that's not where the most interesting part is. The most interesting part is that you've gone to a level where you don't need to be the talented person because, like you said, you're really good at networking and talking to people, listening, and buying people coffee. Where your job is not to be the intelligent guy. Your job is to align the incentives of everyone involved, the engineers, the designers, whoever it is, that's your job. Zuckerberg, regardless of what you think of him, good coder or not, who cares? But he's really good at bringing people together. Do you think you will ever change your philosophy of doing business? Because assuming we're the level where you are right now, you're the level of building your own things that you want. Is that a thought, or would you see that as an interesting thing, or not really?
No, this is a. I may as well be laying on a couch and talking to my having a psych session here, but for me, the next wave in the foreseeable future is something I'm comfortable in because I'm good at it, and that is recruitment of people to deliver a underlying, product or mission. I have some companies and products that are very successful, but people love them. And they may not know, actually, they, as in everyone who's interested in the product, probably doesn't know who owns it, that it's me. And the satisfaction I get out of that is that I want to create, I want to design the team. That's what I'm doing. So I'm putting together the team that can win the championship. I cannot. But I am I am not a head coach, because a head coach is on the field playing the calls and is involved in every call. I'm the general manager. I am recruiting all of the players, all of the key members, all of front office. Once it's going, I'm going to sort of let them do their thing. Mainly, not only because it's not necessarily just an indictment against micromanaging, but also because it's not possible. I can't be involved in every company every day. It's literally not possible. But I will then go and say, and as a result, we've managed to create some really cool, I would say, products and companies and concepts, because, but I'm really fixated. Like, you can't let the best people in your life, when you really meet somebody you like, and they bring the best version of yourself, and you're happy, your endorphins and your brain and energy stimulation is peaking in performance. Do whatever you can to keep those people in your life, because they're hard to come by. When I meet somebody who's truly inspiring, and I become almost ravenous, and I want them. I want to partner with them. I want to recruit them, because they're going to be able to do things that I'm not capable of doing, and I'm excited for our not yet existing customers because what they're doing, there's already such a response. But let me, as you would say, magnify it. And so too, keeping those wonderful people in your life as close to you as you can. And really, that's relationship management. I need to work on that a lot. It's going through your address book. That's making sure that as much as it is birthdays or just it's been a while, like you got to manage your relationships. Otherwise they fade. And so too, you got to rid the toxic. It will always be fascinating to me because I can't seem to perfect that either. But getting rid of toxic bodies of energy around you is so important, and yet we may acknowledge it, and when we don't do it, it's got to be something that makes us human, I suppose, one of our flaws. But I suppose just being conscious of it is a first step. But yeah, I guess.
A positive times a positive is always a positive. A negative and a positive, it's always a negative.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you're also world-class at is being able to delegate. So building a team and then letting people do their thing. That's something that is very hard. It takes a different skill. It takes a really good level of skill to be able to do that. Because that's how you're able to being able to create hundreds of businesses that you have done in your life. For instance, my grandpa, he had many businesses, but he needed to be there, and that's why he was very successful and all that. But he never was able to grow more because he was there all the time.
Yeah,
he needed to be there
talent,
in order to, and he wasn't really good at delegating and having that trust and that, I don't know whether you can do it or not, but you figure it out. So that part of that. So one question would be, how are you able to do that? How do you get good at it? And I'm sure you've had failures with, you trust people who do their thing, and then were you able to, at some point, did you have to stop whatever you were doing to go run to whatever restaurant because you didn't have enough people, or I don't know, etc.?
Sure. Well, an important disclaimer, which really should have been read at the beginning of our time together, is that I'm only sort of presenting the lens through my eyes and how I see it and how I do it. Not that it is the correct or advisable one. I don't have the luxury of having a mandate of perfection. Meaning, or said another way, I am very results driven. Well, again, what a brilliant premise. Okay, but let me explain what that means. I don't care if you're at work. I don't care if you're at the beach. I don't care if we don't have hundreds of employees. I do not have a policy on vacation. If it's abused, it's noticeable, but there isn't anything in any manual that says you're allowed, 2 weeks off. I don't really care, because given the nature and the breadth of the industries, but also the differentiation, I can really only just be results driven. So if it's working, great, okay. And so long as you're showing improvement through whether you're increasing revenues or you've sort of peaked or plateaued at least on revenues, then you are improving your efficiencies, bettering your net. Great. That's results driven. I wake up every morning without an alarm clock at about, it's like 5:15. I could almost nail it down to the minute. But it's when all of the corporate results from yesterday's sales generate in my inbox. I couldn't sleep if I wanted to. And now in my office, anybody who works in the corporate office, I say, everybody knows it. They print it, and they put it on my chair. If it's really important, you print it and you put it on the chair. But don't email me. I want it printed. I want to hold the piece of paper. And in that paper, I could take one piece of paper and tell you everything about the business. I could tell you what type of people were there, how many people were there, what they spent, how much, what day of the week it was. You could give me a complete, just black out all the data, and just with enough information, I can paint the entire picture. So that's just where I'm at, but it's very results driven. No different than the gym. If every day you woke up and you were just ripped and didn't matter what you ate and you looked great, and then what would it matter whether you go to the gym? Would you go to the gym? Why would I need to? Look at me. I look great. Now, if you're results driven and you don't like the way you look and you're gaining weight and, then get into the gym. And if you are going to the gym, let's say you're like, well, Carmen, and I'm looking at myself. I'm talking to myself. I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, Carmen, come on, man. I'm going to the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours a day. I'm hitting the thing. Like, I got my piece of paper with all my workouts. I don't know why, which, by the way, I'm a little overweight right now and I am hitting the gym. But I don't know why. Well, then whatever you're doing in the gym isn't working. And that's the conversation. It's not just, we're not just checking the box. It's got to be hard line on results. And through that, it's rather objective, but mostly unemotional. Hey, I know you're working hard. I know you stayed after. I know you missed your kids' soccer practice. I understand all of that. I don't know what to tell you. This is, unless there's some outlier, which could be market shifted, which could be neighborhood trend, fine. Mm-hmm. Then let's talk about that. But short of an outlier, this is really, which is another callback to a word you used early, probably not the most romantic when it comes to the entrepreneurial spirit or the intimacy of your passion, like your grandfather. Yeah, it was because it was his life. It was his identity. He couldn't imagine, this is what he wanted to do every day, and he couldn't imagine anyone doing it any better because he had that passion. To him, I'm sure he would have laughed if he imagined somebody who cared more than he thought he did.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I don't have, you want to say, that's what I want to do. I want to have, we were talking about the why and we were talking about purpose and passion. Well, yeah, my passion is being able to create something that, is results driven certainly, but it's results driven because the marketplace has decided so. So yeah.
And I think having that ability to being able to execute without getting caught up with the details of, that thing is not perfect. Yeah, no, I need it to be perfect. And I think that's why we're very similar in that regard, is that I like creating projects and not being perfect at the details. And that's why I'm able to create a lot of different things. And I'm able to learn a lot through a lot of different mistakes because it's not perfect, but so what? It's done. I'd rather be done than, having to, let's brainstorm and then let's go meet to the professor and see what he thinks. I don't care what he thinks. I just want to build and see what people say and go from there. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, let's try again. If it doesn't work, maybe a different thing. Mm-hmm. It's just that. And that's why sometimes a lot of the engineering people are not so great because they're always on the details. And that's why they're never able to do, I guess a funny story is I'm taking a philosophy class with engineers. And it's like taking a class with instant gratification addicts who they always need to they purposely miss the big picture so they can focus on details. Oh, but that's not the point because how do they measure? Oh, I thought it was supposed to be milligrams. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is why people are doing certain thing. And they purposely miss it every time because of the details and that level of perfection, which is why they're great engineers but not so great at creating businesses
I love the notion of balanced curriculum, though. So that's really cool of your department to imagine students struggling with that and then creating a class for it.
It's on my department. I created my own major, but yeah.
Sorry, doctor.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
No, that's good. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, what we're really talking about there is feedback and understanding what is noise versus what is a red flag. Yelp is noise. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in the industry but that's, if you obsessed over every Yelp, if you said, if one of your metrics was, we can't allow a bad Yelp. I can't tell you how many restaurateurs have said that. Well, that's crazy. I mean, because now you're designing a different experience for everyone, and their tastes and preferences not aligning can't possibly be your business model. So, that's where you have to understand the difference between feedback and noise, but also then, is this consistent with, is this pivot or is this data that we're going to actually focus on consistent with what we're trying to accomplish, consistent with the why, but yeah, interesting. So what about this conversation is, can we expect that of you guys? We got a couple more months this semester.
Wait, say that again?
From our conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Have there been any takeaways? I don't. I'm not grading. I won't be insulted. I'm not. It could be feedback or noise. But with the few months left in this semester, is there anything that you're going to look at differently? Are we going to go on a date? Are you going to ask somebody out on a date before the end of the semester?
I have plenty of practice, but no, I think one thing I definitely want to do that I've been dying to do, because I can just feel it, that people will love this experiential thing. It's just thinking about how to do it right. So because like the first impression will be really important. So really getting all the brand ambassadors and everything together to do it really, really great. And then after that, okay, like it's great. Now everyone knows it's great. And then it's easier to go from there. I definitely want to do something like that. And
did you like the idea of not knowing what it was until day of?
Oh yeah, I think there has to be a thing in there, because people do like that, that FOMO
element of surprise,
and that surprise, and people they crave that because they're never surprised. It's called it's a famous essay. It's called The Death of Wow. People never say wow anymore. It's just like, oh, is that, oh, who are you? Oh yeah, Carmen Rossi. Okay, yeah, whatever. But it's like, oh no, like I want to know why you do the things you like, how you do everything you do, and having that curiosity and level of surprise. So that is one thing I will definitely do differently.
What about revenue generation? Will you incorporate revenue into your model?
So that's the interesting part, right? So that's something.
By the way, data is sometimes way more valuable than any economic generator that could be realized and recognized, especially on a campus. I mean, really, you're not talking about tens of millions of dollars, but data for sure. I'm just curious if you've flirted with it.
So it's funny because we have started thinking about this a lot recently. Like just today morning, we were just thinking, okay.
From 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Just trying to, because we really need to buy the camera for this, because we're limited here, because it's always an issue with the cameras on the building. They had another one, and then somehow it got lost. They don't know where it went. So it's always a thing.
Well, let's problem solve this, or let's imagine this. So in order to expand, you need your own equipment.
Right.
The issue is the financing.
Right.
Yeah. And one solution would be to revenue generate through subscription, or what was your idea on, what was the conversation?
A couple of things. So we want to club in two things. So data and this platform, right? We have some data from this platform that we have collected, but it's still not enough as maybe UIUC Free Food or some of the other projects. And one of the other things, so data can play a huge role in helping support this.
Tell me how. You know how. So you've got
Yeah, so
your data.
Simple answer is that okay. One way, how can you monetize a YouTube channel? Okay, sponsors like easy. Okay, whatever.
Right.
How do you
Of course.
How do you find the sponsor? Okay, it's a whole different.
Do you look at that as diluting if you had a sponsor?
No,
No.
but how do you find someone who's
Exactly. That's the question. So how do you cater to that need?
Oh, how do you where
find
is the
people?
marketplace of sponsors? How do you engage with
Right.
sponsors? Oh, well, I mean, you're the hot prom date. You're the one with the data. You know, you do know that they're looking for that. Is there a platform for that? Boy, what a cool app. That app has to exist. A platform for startups to present their data, which serves as a pool for sponsors to log into. I have to think it exists, but that would be really cool. And then you take, as the app, a percentage of their sponsorship spend, which probably wouldn't be honest, but, or you charge like $500 as a sponsor to engage. Anyways, let's not lose focus here. The sponsorship, I mean, your database, there's a whole community that wants to engage with that. I mean, isn't this the cup of coffee thing? You guys are so resourceful. I mean, it just seems.
So yeah, so that's what we've done. So one thing that we've done a lot is reaching out to people on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn and emails.
Emails.
LinkedIn, yeah.
So we've gotten a lot of emails from previous clubs that they funded, like other clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So we email them. Okay, here's why. Here's
What was the conversion rate on response?
So far.
I hope this stays recording.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Meaning, this is good. This is good for everybody to sort of.
So far, very low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't. To me, I never care. You know, if we try a promotion, if we try and it doesn't work, I don't care. Let's understand
Data.
That's that in and of
Right.
itself. No
It's
data is good. Well, is good that we have. I'm trying not to just give you trying to make it more relevant and pertinent. What about testimonial? Have you guys had any of those from users, listeners, otherwise?
UIUC Free Food has had a couple, but it's not really
Well, I mean, I guess we're talking about the talk show here.
right.
Either one.
I mean, for
Experiences, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the data is just
right.
the same.
Testimony, yeah. I mean, you can just ask. I mean, we were on TV, and so we can just have that clip and show it to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely.
And do you have like a sponsorship pack? Are you attaching the ask or the framework?
So that's something I'm in the middle of creating right now because I've talked to a couple of people, and the one thing that's common is you always share a sponsorship packet or something that tells the company what you're looking for and how they can support, right? If you just email them saying, "Oh, can we have a camera, please?" No one's gonna like.
Absolutely not.
Exactly. So what's in it for them?
Yeah.
Right. So that's something we're also trying to figure out. Like the more direct and the more conscious we are of what we want and how we ask it, I think it'll increase our chances of maybe finding someone who can give that to us. Like we cannot just say, okay, give us whatever you have or give us however much you can to support this, right? Because that itself is like a very open-ended question and it might not lead to a fruitful result. So how can we focus on getting what we want, but also structure it and present it in a way that people can subscribe to, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. There's definite topic relevancy, I think, could tailor who you're soliciting in sponsorship. Meaning if you have a topic on hospitality, you may imagine a different sponsor than a topic on, biological engineering, something like it's just different discussions and different audience. Or maybe not, because your audience is, what is the typical runtime on the episodes?
Runtime meaning how much
Total.
you will watch?
Yeah. No. Runtime on
total episode
Yeah.
length, right?
Yeah.
But I think about it's right now it's 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. And would you read it? Would you how a lot of podcasts, they actually they curated ads in their own voices. So like they imagine, I'm endorsing this product. I'm endorsing Jimmy John because,
Right.
man, I was, they're open 24/7 and I was studying for an exam till 4:30 in the morning. I was dying and I was hungry. And that's just like a.
Right. So that's would be a conversation like which one would be the most beneficial way for them to be,
Advertised.
right.
Yeah.
Like whatever helps them the most.
Mm-hmm.
So it would depend on the product. Or the
Yeah, I mean, I would, dear Carmen, this is our 2-sentence, this is our podcast.
This is what we do. This is why we do it.
Here's some asterisks on data. Here's why you should be paying attention. We thought of you because there is this topic, you're this business, this audience visits your store. Attached, you will find a sponsorship package.
Right.
ABC, level 1, 2, 3, platinum, gold, silver.
Silver.
I think being direct and clear
Exactly.
is because it's most often a blind cold call. They're just clicking, opening, and being like, what is this? But you should have it.
Right.
Not having it is an indictment on yourselves because you've got a good product and engaged data and audience that should absolutely necessitate interested sponsors. You're just struggling to figure, which is fantastic, by the way.
Part of the process.
It's yes, you've identified the problem. You didn't go 2 years and then at a reunion be like, why the hell didn't we have sponsors? That's in and of itself part of the journey. But now when you get the camera, what would be different? See, like for this, there's backdrop. There's every episode looks the same, which podcasts most all have that. They film it the same. There's familiarity. You want to be like on the street or on the scene when you're doing this?
So not necessarily like, okay, we're going to go on the streets and just like, whatever and so on. It's more of that opens. So, I mean, we've done a lot of things here and we could do a lot more with people on campus. But, if you wanted to talk to someone like you, people like you usually don't come to here.
Oh, sure.
So we want to talk to more people in different cities and having just one camera to just make the recording. But it's not because like, we need a camera. Because otherwise, like, what's the point? Like there's no need because we have everything and we don't have any cost and everything is only upside. So that's why.
Are you editing?
Yeah,
Yes.
everything.
Yes, we
It's
from
all
start to
systems.
finish.
It's you two.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everything from
Great.
start to finish.
Great. Really cool. Well, I mean, I don't want a spoiler alert, but yeah, we'll talk.
Sure. So the other thing that I guess just quickly, so UIUC free food.
Yep.
I told you how it works. A lot of followers, a lot of attention. Great.
1,000?
About 10% of the campus community, which is something. I mean, not on followers, but on views. So one idea that I had is that you need a way to incentivize people to submit the free food there. Just walking by, okay, free pizza. It takes some effort to just pull out the phone and share it and not just eat the food and not care. You need some incentives. So how did I think of the incentive? 2 ways. Reaching out to local businesses, like restaurants and things like that, such as Espresso Royale, for instance. I actually emailed them or whatever. Couldn't find the owner because the manager was
Right.
weird. But so basically what I pitched them was, what do you need from you? I need perhaps excess, food that's gonna expire, and it's like 1 or 2 days. Just tell me now. I'll put it up and like free food for the account. And the other thing is like, whoever submits a lot of free food, maybe like a $5 coupon, like a free coffee. So let's something
Right.
cheap. And then what would they get? They would get, oh, like, X business. Oh, they did this, like, for the community. They're amazing people, like, oh my goodness. And then people, the coupon, the $5 coupon, okay, a coffee. But maybe you're with a friend, or maybe you're a little hungry. So you end up buying more stuff that you would normally have.
Absolutely.
So that's increased revenue. And yeah, which that goodwill that you have from students, X business, they're really helping the community. They don't have to do this. Anyway, I did that. Didn't quite work out. What can I improve? What did I do well?
I'm surprised that didn't work out. We have a company called Shout Out that's just getting launched. And what we do is I recognize that today, everybody's an influencer. You could have a little brother or sister with 81 followers, and they're like, I'm an influencer. I got to post this. My people are waiting to watch. And yet the term influencer is synonymous with the promotion and advertisement of product, and your reach is at least tens of thousands. I mean, to be considered an influencer.
Right, sure.
So let's turn that on its head. Let's acknowledge the reality that the person with even 81 followers, and I'm not going to be that sensationalist, but thinks they're an influencer, and is doing product advertising. It doesn't matter where. I'm at Dairy Queen. I'm at the Gap. Mm-hmm. Is Gap still around? Yeah, I guess so. But I am, so-and-so. And they're promoting product. And they're reviewing product. You see that. As a matter of fact, on TikTok, it's not called de-platform, but it's de-influence is a big hashtag on TikTok. Really? Because it's not, right now, it's trending that it's not about just leaving positive reviews, which is so shitty of us. Now, it's like the Yelp of TikTok. But now we're leaving negative. Avoid these products. So Shout Out says, if you log in to our dashboard and you have 600 followers, you put in your information and you say, I'm into engineering, I'm into science, I'm into fitness. Doesn't really matter. I'm into these 6 things. Now, I am a business, and I'm located at Champaign. I am a student. Now, I am a bike enthusiast. I want to open up a bike shop on campus. Carmen's carousels. And in that, I just open. I take my $20,000 in startup. I get a lease. I open the doors. I don't really have much left. Maybe $2,000 or $3,000 left. And I have a big grand opening sign, and I'm right next to Espresso Royale. And nobody's really coming. A couple, because it's just, and so then what do? I make the flyer, right? Now I'm out there passing out flyers, or I'm going into Lincoln Hall and I'm posting the flyers on the bulletin boards. And I'm, okay, was that effective? And Carmen's carousel is not doing so hot. But I want to get the word out. So what Shout Out does is it says, we're going to go, you've signed up on the back end. You want to be an influencer because you have 15 stories a day and and a lot of your friends respond in DMs, like you have engagement. And all of that is data that is mined and collected that can be presented so long as your page is public. Part of one of your interests was biking. Now I see, because it's geographic, I'm going to go on, I want to pay people to shout out my product. Now, I would love if Justin Bieber shouted out Carmen's carousels, but that's going to cost me 7 figures, and it might not translate that much. I mean, yeah, he's got tens of millions of followers, but how many of them are at UIUC?
They don't really care about,
here, about Carmen. So that's not even possible. But I've got my $2,000 left from my original 20, and that's my marketing budget. And I thought about maybe I should go to Assembly Hall and at the monster truck rally and advertise, or at a basketball game or something. But you say on your dashboard that you'll post for $25. I could get dozens of people to then go physically to my shop, to Carmen's, and post and be like, hey, I just got my bike fixed. I was just here. And because it's under $600, it doesn't have to say this is a paid advertisement, so it looks organic. I've completely, we've got, in the first couple of months, over 500 influencers, tons of huge businesses. It is really successful. We've got data that shows that people who are paying $100 for a shout out from somebody some of them are getting caught up in the algorithm and they're getting over 100,000 views. Who wouldn't pay $100 for 100,000 views? It's, but the idea there is that sort of shouting out the business, and, when he shout outs Carmen and maybe says, I'm here and I signed up and got 15% off. Like, you should too. There's some hook there, but it's done organically. I gotta think, that was a really self-interested anecdote to get to your question. But I'm surprised, saying all of that and knowing that it is effective, that by shouting out the business, you didn't think it was effective, or the business didn't think, like they weren't just as likely to continue to participate with a coupon.
So basically what I did, I showed up to the Espresso Royale, and I asked, can I talk to the manager? Okay, the manager's like, okay, like, why do you want to talk to me? Okay, no, listen, I'm a student here. I'd like to talk to you or the owner. Who do you think is the right person? Okay, the owner. Here's the email. No, I actually gave him my email and my number because he didn't want to give me the email. Here's my email. Don't worry about it. It's fine. The person emails me, and hey,
That's good.
What's up? Okay, hey, I explain who I am, why I do it, what's the purpose, what's your benefit first, how I would benefit this thing. And then I follow up one time.
I think this is an excellent opportunity to perfect the pitch. Mm-hmm. I think the pitch needs to be more clear,
exactly,
tight, and just focused on the why I would care.
Right, they shouldn't narrate a story because...
And here's some examples. In all of our pitches for Shoutout, I referenced those $100 examples that generated over 100,000 views. Like, you have that example. This one example we did, and you said 10% of the campus population numerically viewed. That's checkbook data. That's like, say a number. I think it's the pitch. I don't see the inherent flaw of concept. You've proved concept because they've maintained engagement, they've come back, they've continued to follow. Your follower base is not shrinking; it is at least plateaued. And I would imagine the same could be said of the podcast. But, I think it's, the fact that you haven't been able to convert the data into a call to action of sponsorship, I think it's in pitch.
Yeah, and I think going back to what you asked, like what would be the takeaway of this conversation is that I've done a lot of projects with a lot of data. I have another project where I basically have an internship list with thousands of students looking for internships. And I have a lot of these things where I just did it for fun and just for myself and just because I thought it was cool. But I wasn't really thinking about revenue generating, which is not to say I'm going to be a millionaire just by doing these little things, because I won't. But it is important to start, because I know how to build things. I know how to get it to that point. But seeing that as the next goal of, okay, you have these cool projects, how do you start converting them into paying users, which is another ball game that is also really hard, but it's also super interesting. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Congratulations. You guys are really maximizing your experience here. As juniors, and you've launched a number of different things. I can't tell you how valuable this is. I mean, you're I don't believe in the competitive nature of racing against my peers. I never looked at it like that. I never heard Susie or Joey were doing something and then I'd panic because I didn't do anything. And that thought never even occurred to me. It was always just competing with like my self-satisfaction and being able to say, you know, I would not accept a bad grade. I've gotten them. I've gotten bad grades on tests, but you better believe I was knocking on the professor's door. I just couldn't accept it. And if there was a way to reverse it or improve it, I went down I exhausted every remedy. But what I wouldn't do is lament on the reason. If I studied and I gave it my all and I didn't get the grade I wanted, oh shit, that was everything I had. You know, and sport is a really good indicator of that. Like I worked my butt off, I tried, and I came in third. But at least I, you know, versus I completely forgot about this. I crammed all night. I expected to get my ass. I mean, the fact that I didn't get an F, or maybe I did, shouldn't be that surprising. Well, that is sort of like you're going to go through these years and recognize I really maximized my experience. I feel very, you know, comfortable that I've learned a lot, not just in the classroom, through trial and error. I mean, if this was the three of us talking and all we did was, yeah, everything I do works. And you were like, yeah, we launched this and it worked. And yeah, we did this model. It just keeps working. I mean, that would be, yeah. That said, I think the meat of these conversations has been in the struggles and failures and sort of how to look at it. And the goal is not to fail, you know, and it's not we shouldn't be desirous of them. But
exactly.
My best lessons, I've lost millions of dollars, and on things I was so sure of. If I lose, I haven't lost the same way twice, and if I ultimately do, something else is going on. I missed it. I'm not paying attention. I'm growing too fast. Because I have obsessed over those failures, and really have an understanding. Not the next day. I mean, you got to wear it. You gotta wear your dunce cap for a while to truly understand what happened. But I am so relieved that I won't make those mistakes again. Because at the time I had no idea that I was literally making decisions that would cost me significantly. And there is some relief. Granted, fortunately, I got through it. I wasn't ruined. But there is the relief of understanding, okay, this didn't work. I know why it didn't work. I know the red flags that will show themselves if we go on a path of not working. Like, that is very valuable.
Data.
and I think the point of competing only with yourself and not seeing others as a threat is that, you know, after we started this other podcast and things started, every one of them I follow them, I try to support them because, you know, that's cool. You know, like they're doing something. There was another like dating app thing that came out, and I don't need it, but it's like, hey, download it and like use it. And I was talking to the founders, like, here's how you can get like distribution on a user. Like,
fantastic, wonderful.
I don't care because a lot of people here. It's a big campus, but a lot of people don't create new projects. And every time I see for someone doing something, hey, like, let me know how I can help you. Like, here's this. I'll tell my friends to like subscribe to whatever thing because, you know, like we're not competing with each other. Like, you know, like the world's too big.
What you are doing is something I love in people. And that is establishing a pattern of positivity. Positivity is not something that you're just like, all right, it's been 7 days since I was last positive. Gotta suck it up and go do the thing. But if you establish a pattern of positivity, it will absolutely lead to quality results. It's just a degree of quality. But you are in a positive, but this, the opposite is true. A pattern of negativity is going to lead to disaster. And so that I am so on board with practicing positivity and understanding, not disingenuously. I mean, it's just because it is a pattern, but just understanding that what you're doing. And by the way, by checking out that dating app and just going through it and having the files percolate throughout your mind of saying, this is similar to this, or, oh, if they did that, I bet you they would receive, or, man, I really like the way they did this.
Right.
You're perfecting yourself through their product in something that is that's not their intention. Mm-hmm. Their intention is not to stimulate what you think about it's to get you to engage, but very cool.
Exactly. I was just going crazy. Like, okay, if I was a founder, how would I do this? Like, how would I get everyone matches? Like, no matter who he was, I would just working hard. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to download it. I was like, listen, you have to, I don't care. You have to download it. You have to go, whatever thing you have to do. Just like, I just want to learn how to, not do it better because I'm not competing, but just like, I just want to know what works and didn't work. And it's fun. It's fun. Especially, just supporting others just because. I mean, I'm not looking for them to help me or to watch my videos. Like, who cares? If, like the way I think about it is that if I had a project and I'm just starting, I would have just loved if someone just hey, like, congrats, like, good for you, whatever, or like, it doesn't matter if I get it or not, but it's just like in the beginning when you just like your first project and you don't know whether it's gonna work or not, just one person like, hey, good job or whatever, like, I want to support you or subscribe. Just it goes a long way, and I think that's I see it as the meaning of life. Is like those ripple effects are so little, but it could go a long way. A quick story is that one day I was going to my physics lab. Cold morning in the winter. It was about 7 a.m. My lab started at 8, and I was on the bus, and the lady in the seat of the bus driver, no one says good morning in the bus, but say good morning. How are you? And she was a little sippy. She was like, oh, hi, yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, I'm doing. Wait, how are you? Whatever. And so we started talking, whatever, and then I go sit because I'm gonna leave on the next exit, and before we get there, some random biker just goes across the bus. And she was able to stop just literally 1 millimeter before hitting the biker. They can guarantee you, if I didn't say good morning to the lady, which is good morning, there's 2 words, it would have been, the bike would have been ruined, and the person,
butterfly effect.
The person would have been too. And it just those little things that, change things.
Yeah, it is rewarding to be matched with positivity. The lesson, not there, that's butterfly effect, changing lives through little ripples. But some people are just inherently shitty. And that doesn't mean, we as humans want to put down negativity or punish negativity. It's a reaction. You want to be an ass? Okay, then I'm going to be, you want to get in my face? It's a tough discipline, positivity. And it's not met with, it doesn't bat 1,000. It's not met with 100% reciprocity. But it is definitely a discipline that should be practiced. I really believe in it. I believe in positivity. Like living in Chicago and dealing with politicians, there's a lot of negativity from the media. But I am a cheerleader of Chicago. I can run through so many statistics of why it's one of the most important, not one of the greatest cities. That seems like a subjective adjective. It's one of the most important economies in the world, and I could go on about it, but so I love positivity. I believe in progress through positivity. The other thing I love is yes. Love saying yes.
Yes, man.
Hate yes, man.
Your favorite movie.
Finally, thank you for one pop culture. Oh, did I say that previously?
I don't know.
Oh,
maybe.
Something.
It's a good movie.
Maybe
It is a good movie. I've had some pop culture references, and they're just right over your guys' head. But maybe you're Gen Z, I'm millennial, so there's the generation gap. But yeah, so such a simple, silly premise. I can't tell you how many times I want to say no to a coffee or a meeting or a phone call set up or. It's just and by the way, it's not because I'm certainly not intentionally rude or too busy. It's just can't, there's only so much time.
Right.
But I really pushed myself to saying yes. I mean, I think you guys emailed me and I emailed you right back. And it was like, yeah, sure, And this isn't arduous by any means, but I love to say yes. I really have to work hard for a no. And by the way, there's so many examples of new staff because that's part of like our indoctrination. And if you're new, is we really stress like customer service in hospitality. Try to say yes. And there's so many occasions, like probably a few dozen stories where the employee is missing, and it's just like, and the manager will be like, Where are you? Where have you been? Like, well, they asked for this particular milk and I didn't want to say no. And there's the store down the street. So I thought I'd only be gone for 5 minutes and I ran and I got it. Now, you don't leave work. That's crazy. But they took it so literally to say yes that they went out of their way. And by the way, that customer had a pretty cool experience. I mean, they were probably just there to grab a bite and talk to a colleague or bring out some friends. But now they have this story where I asked for almond milk and this nut ran out and went and bought it and came and gave a half gallon of almond milk. So anyways, I love saying yes. But thanks. If you guys have anything else, feel free. But I certainly want to, I appreciated the time. It's really, it's humbling, it's heartwarming, and this was only mildly humiliating, and I guess there's my H alliteration, but this experience, having undergrads, juniors who set up podcasts, I mean, you saying that your peers are creating apps and you're testing them out, that didn't exist. I mean, what you're saying is, I'm in a community where people are creating, they're doing their code, entering into the marketplace, advertising it.
Not too much, but I'm really trying hard to incentivize that and support them whatever way I can. I mean,
it's great.
I'm just another student.
But they exist.
Exactly.
There's other people out there who are really maximizing their experience here, and that's really the power of U of I. Awesome community. I love that you've incorporated UIUC into the title because we're all in this community and it's an instant brand of credibility. If something has UIUC on it, that's like a stamp of approval and dignity and that's what this is. It's really cool. Very impressive. Very impressive. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean that.
Actually, we're more thankful to you for coming.
Right. You didn't have to say yes.
Yeah.
And you did it.
And you did.
You said.
It wasn't forcibly. I don't like whip myself to say no.
But two more things before we end.
Please.
What advice do you have for young people, someone who is smart, motivated, and they want to have an impact on the world? What would you tell them, or what would you tell them to ignore?
Well, I feel like the time that we've spent here has been a lot of, sort of guidance and how to and not. But let me answer your question. What's really important? I talk about this all the time. I've talked about this for years. I've effectively lectured on this while I was in college. The best thing you could do is treat yourself as a brand, and a brand that you're loyal to yourself. You notice when the brand is off. You notice when it's off brand. If you're constantly conscious, your brand experiences crisis management. You can't crumble. We've seen brands really fail in crisis management and how they take a situation or circumstance and then thoughtfully respond. Sometimes they don't exercise the process of thoughtfully and elicit or send out the wrong message. Unfortunately, we live in such a digital world that everything has a footprint. So, the chances of, a miscalculation will at least be documented. So that thoughtfulness has to be an ingredient to your decision. No matter how confident or assured you are of, your result, your action, take the second to be thoughtful about it and measuring yourself, holding your brand in high regard. If you really care about your brand, if you think of yourself as a dollar store and that's your brand, that's how it's going to be received outside on the marketplace. If you hold yourself to the standards of that elevated brand, that's always been very important to me. And then the rule of large numbers. We've definitely talked about that, but the instant gratification that is the result, the personality shaping result of social media, where we need to instantly, receive praise or success or gratification, is not a long-term strategy.
All right.
Therefore, the rule of large numbers will create a more significant set of data that meaningful decisions can derive from. So if I'm applying for 3 jobs and I'm 0 for 3, I don't know if that is a great, pool or set of data to really analyze or explore. Therefore, the goal can't be I'm going to ask somebody out for a coffee. It has to be I'm going to ask 50. I'm not going to solicit 5 sponsors. I'm going to solicit 100. If I'm 1 for 100, it's either no one's interested in the product, which isn't true, says my data, or there's something wrong with my pitch. I'm not converting. I've attracted them. Okay, I've attracted their attention, but I'm not converting them from just like I've clicked on your link, but now I'm following you. I mean, that's the most basic is, yes, I've got your attention, but did I convert you into, and then once we convert, now we need to transform. Attract, convert, transform. That's our real goal. Now we're transforming them into, hey, you got to click on this link. And now I'm like telling people about your thing that you just so. The rule of large numbers has got to be, a part of your process. So I'm not just going to ask 2 people out on dates. I'm going to ask 20. And if I'm 0 for 20, I need to
change the pitch.
I got to change the pitch.
Get a haircut.
I got
try a different place.
Right.
Different glasses.
But hopefully there you go. Did you have anything else?
Yeah.
We have at the end of our show, we have a section called overrated or underrated.
Shit. I didn't watch the end, otherwise I would have known this was coming. So go on.
It's surprise. So
Surprise, yeah.
Better. The first one. The most expensive thing of a restaurant is the mechanical systems. Overrated or underrated?
Good for you. No, you're underrated. Underrated. So this is for any listener who is interested in hospitality and starting a coffee shop, a restaurant, a nightclub, it doesn't matter. Buying a second or signing a lease or doing a deal in a second generation space is going to be considerably more advantageous than walking into the white box, 4 lease window, nothing. Why? It's not the bar. It's not the ornate furniture. It's not the glassware that is all your cost. It's the mechanicals. It's the plumbing, it's the electrical, it's the HVAC. And if it's a second generation space, meaning a restaurant that had expired, gone out of business, moved, the infrastructure is there, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So now you're shoring up your capital investment and shortening the time with which it takes to build all that, because that takes the longest amount of time too. So it's the most expensive, it's the longest time, and it's the thing that is least noticed. Underrated.
We all know that you love pizza. So Chicago's deep dish pizza, underrated or overrated?
Well, for deep dish, it's underrated because it's Chicago or bust. I mean, we don't really talk about like Chicago deep dish versus, I mean, West Coast isn't going to have it, but I wouldn't really, or Southern isn't going to have it because of the water, but you wouldn't really talk about a different city. Like Chicago is deep dish. So if it's Chicago or bust. On a Chicago pizza versus Detroit style pizza versus, which is the crusted, more of the boat, so to speak. New York is big slice, thin slice. Chicago pizza. I can't, wait a minute. I've spent time saying how much of a cheerleader I am for Chicago. Chicago is named multiple years in a row by Condé Nast the #1 food city in the country. Might be the world. The James Beard Awards, which is like the Oscars for food and restaurants, was in New York for 100 years, relocated within the last few years to Chicago because Chicago is like the dining destination. There is a really cool statistic. So I'm on the Chamber of Commerce, the Restaurant Association, the Governor's Economic Development Board. I'm on a lot of these boards, and not surprising, I love the data. But I'm also expanding, I have restaurants in Indiana, New York. I'm expanding outside the state. Chicago is one of the largest of the major metropolitan cities in the country. It has the smallest number of chain restaurants. So over 90% of Chicago restaurants are organic to Chicago. So if you visit here, you're really getting a Chicago experience. Right. Now you take a city like Orlando, it's less than 50, which means, or Indianapolis, or like 60% is chains, meaning the Chili's, the Olive Garden, then there's steakhouse styles, but like that you can get anywhere. Mm-hmm. So like Chicago as a dining destination, second to none.
What about deep dish? As a kind of pizza, I'm hinting you're leaning towards overrated.
No, well, I would say that I have multiple restaurants that serve diverse style pizza. I do not serve deep dish anywhere.
Interesting.
That is an objective response to, that is a factual statement to your question.
Is there a reasoning behind that?
I do like, so I have a spot right across the street from Wrigley Field called HVAC that serves Detroit style. Mm-hmm. We've got New York big slice places. We've got, I love a very sweet red sauce on a thin. Most famous is Aurelio's. That's my favorite pizza. No, I think pizza's fun. It's community.
Pizza's a lot of fun.
It is. It's easy. I have no, it's everybody it's safe. Mm-hmm. But I don't want it to be boring. So we mix it up. I have a restaurant in Chicago's South Loop. I opened in October, a couple months ago. Our chef is mid to late 30s from Italy, southern part of the boot. And his pizza he creates it from scratch. His English is charming, but seeks improvement. And I would never insult him by forcing, like it's his style.
Right.
And it's it's wonderful. Cafe Beyond, by the way, for anybody. I gotta get my shameless drops in. Yeah. So.
I told you that I grew up I was born and raised in Venezuela, and the Italian community there, it's really, really big. So growing up, and family, friends, a lot of people are from Italy or Italian descent. So a lot of Italian restaurants, and now we come here and it's the same thing, a lot of Italian things. And my family, specifically my mom, she loves Italy. What do you think of the place?
Oh, Eataly? In downtown?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really cool concept. It's located in the part of Chicago that is heavy tourism, so it is definitely a tourist destination. But for those who haven't been, talk about an experience. You are shopping, so it is a grocery store that has very tastefully designed like little pockets of restaurants or kiosks where you can buy excellent food and eat it while you're shopping, or you can actually go there to dine and not shop at all. That is a very unique experience. I think they have a few of them. I think they've done Eataly in other cities.
Yeah, in New York. And
they did. Yeah, okay,
right. Next
right.
to the World Trade Center. So again, like very touristy cities.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm. So of the styles, I'm more of we're Northern Italian. That's why I'm lighter skinned. I never did that. What are those?
23 and
yeah, 23. I've never done that. My dad is 100% Italian, and I don't want to know that anything's different. So like, I'm just happy with I'm Italian.
They just want,
but I look at me, I'm like, well, I don't look that, But we're Northern. My cuisine favorites are Southern. Like I'm a penne with like a rich, the orange sauce.
I love that.
Yeah, that's a butter. That's a vodka sauce. It's but yeah, rigatoni or penne with vodka and the other thing I appreciate about European eating though, and I was a super picky eater. I went 72 days on campus eating McDonald's straight. I started counting after like 17 or 18, and I would eat. I was very set. I loved. I mean, just the proverbial suburbs or the suburbs. I loved cereal, and I never. I had a rule when I was in school here, and that rule hasn't changed now. No food in my home. And really it's a discipline to not eat too late at night. It just kills your metabolism. But also it's a discipline to force yourself to go out. Because I knew I was a picky eater, and I was like, especially when I launched a hospitality company, I'm like, I gotta start, diversifying my palate. But I started eating fish, not until my late 20s. When you go to school for 10 years, I went 10 years straight, you're 27 when you graduate. And when I graduated, I lived with my parents. When I had my first restaurant, which is a major store in Chicago, in like the heart of downtown, I was commuting to my parents, which is hilariously pathetic. Now, kudos to them for being my roommates and not kicking me out. And I even once woke up with a date in my parents' home in my high school bedroom, from the city, which was hilariously pathetic. But it also says, hey, people are trying to be titans of industry a year after graduation. I mean, think about it. I'm 7 years from where you are today is when I graduated. I think you guys are ahead of the game and doing very well. And it was in my late 20s that I really started pushing myself to try food I would have never otherwise, which is not young necessarily, but now I really like fish. I love a branzino. I love. We just put a swordfish on a menu somewhere. I thought it was great. But yeah, it's
Cool. The next one, holding the liquor license for Lollapalooza. Underrated or overrated?
Well, Lollapalooza, Live Nation and C3 will tell you it's overrated because it's really just in name. What I will say about the amazing opportunity to just be in the same category as a company like C3, which was 3 guys named Charlie from Austin, Texas, started a production company and launched Lollapalooza before all of us were born. They are so good at what they do. What they have to consider, like, it is on another level. I love being able to see behind the curtain of somebody who fucking knows what they're doing. And my brain and just me watching and noticing how there's so much in the details that goes completely unnoticed by the 100,000 plus people who attend every day is awesome, because their experience, to achieve that experience of just gingerly going to Grant Park, which is, there's not a better venue. Like, it's just so cool that we have a park in the middle of the city with unobstructed views to the lake. And but to just go through and listen to great bands and then just go, and whether you go to an after show or a bar or back onto public transit, it's seamless. And yet when you see what it takes to get there, it's so inspiring and fascinating. So they'll tell you that having a liquor license is totally overrated because it's really just a name. And it's due to local municipal code. But I will say it's an insanely underrated experience for me, because I just get to see some back of house stuff that, yeah. It's on a production basis. It's really cool. Really cool.
Next one. We talked a lot about starting companies, and one of the things that's picking up a lot today are incubators and accelerators. So, in your opinion, underrated or overrated?
Dang, these are good. That's a tough one. I told you at the beginning, there is no subject that I consider taboo, because I will be able to artfully pivot without anybody noticing.
Just like deep dish pizza?
That said, I understand their purpose. I'll say it. Overrated. I understand their purpose, and I absolutely recognize the medium with which you can now present or engage with the other ancillary communities that are needed in your business, whether it's certain tech or marketing, PR, or most notably capital. But I of course I get that. Starting a business is supposed to be hard. You're supposed to be naked and bare, and you should have to figure it out, and you should be early on. And this is not to say, I don't want to say something that is in conflict with something I've said previously, but in isolation, you should be thinking about your company all the time. You should be concerning yourself with the micro, because what you're doing is you're on the journey of becoming an expert. Especially your startup, especially if it's your first business, you've got to go through all of that, because through that process, which makes it very hard. But that's that story of, I lived in my car. I didn't, it was tough on my marriage. That was part of it, man. That was like, that's what gave you the character. So a model that creates crutches. It's the same with like degrees of mentorship. I don't like. I'm not in the position now. It's easy for me to say that now. I just beyond all of it. Not beyond just beyond on my model of comfort. But yeah, for a startup and for an entrepreneur, particularly one that can afford risk, I have adoration for any entrepreneur, but I understand the difference between a 27-year-old with no family, no kids, and the 45-year-old, 50, who has, their daughter who's starting college next year and got a mortgage, and it's different. But yeah, I'm not a big crutch. I don't endorse the crutches. Now, you could pick apart my position, and that is all the advantages that are available. So I recognize all the advantages. I just think if we're taking a startup or we're taking an individual who's going to be their own boss or for the first time, going to start something on their own for the first time, that journey shouldn't be aided too significantly.
There's a value that is struggle, and that a struggle is learning, and the learning is data, which will help you. If you don't get that data, you're not going to get to where you're supposed to be.
Well, and I think more to that is by the time you're on your fifth company, this is just an example, if that first one, you were everything. You were the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CMO. Like you were the janitor.
Alphabet.
Yeah, you were everything. Now you know everything. Not I shouldn't say that. Not that you know it, but you've been exposed to it. Whereas if you're surrounded by the community that gap fills, I don't know. I mean, it isn't illogical to suggest that you don't have the same journey and experience.
And then last one.
No, one more after that.
Go then.
Go ahead.
So going to the bars, but because you're here, so we'll say KAMS and Red Lion. Overrated or underrated? As a means to meet people, socialize.
Yes.
Without a bias.
Sure. So I worked as a sophomore in the bars. You immediately are in a new friendship circle, or you're exposed to it, because now you have working colleagues. That's the same as any job. You don't have to work at a bar to have working colleagues. It's just the idea, I'm working. It's a job. If I didn't go to University of Illinois, my life would be dramatically different. Not dramatically. Not only dramatically, drastically different. There wouldn't, it would be hard for me to outline a path and model that led anywhere near the same space. Could have been success because I am a driven person, perhaps. It would have just been very different. And the University of Illinois community, it's a very social community. We're kind of on an island in Champaign. The downtown is a generous description. It's not transient of its student body. There is that Midwestern charm for a bulk of your classmates, just given its location and the Big Ten sort of conference. Listen, it comes off as biased, but like I had probably tasted alcohol in high school, but I didn't like it. Nothing, and this is almost true today, nothing was better than an ice cold Coca-Cola. Like tall glass of ice poured slowly and on a can that's already cold too. So in high school, I'm sure I tried it, but I never liked it. So really, my experimenting with alcohol was probably, it was in college, and I don't think I liked it, but I was comforted in knowing you were in a sort of safer environment. I mean, the statistics on alcohol-related injury on college campuses is when there isn't oversight and guidance. I mean, you can't solve the problem of students experimenting in college. That can't be a PTA mission statement. You're going to lose. That's what college, it's part of it. So if it can be in an environment that is got controls, guidance, safeguards, meaning you're not in a field, or you're not in a dorm room with a plastic jug of crap liquor that you don't know what you're pouring. Do you remember I remember the first drink I made myself. And I puked. I was junior year of prom. And I hated it. And I'm glad I had a horrible experience because I stayed away from it for a while. But the problem was I had no idea. I thought like a Jack Daniels and a Coke was, by its name, the proportionate amount. Half Jack, half Coke. You would just think it says Jack and Coke, It doesn't say 80-20 or 90-10, So, of course, I had a 50-50 drink. Goes well, because everything with Coca-Cola does. And it was a terrible experience. So they are incredibly special. I hope that every student, if I were to say rapid fire 3 things about Red Lion and KAMS, alcohol wouldn't make my first 3. Yes, it's a bar, but right away, energy, school spirit, like music, like social, like those are the words I'm saying right away. I'm not saying booze. And for that, that's unique, right? Like you're describing something where its purpose is something that you're not saying in the first 3 words. It's almost bad if you think about it. Like, ugh, bad for the business model, not bad. But that's why it's underrated. I hope every student, you'll leave here and never see anything like that. I've been all over the world, and I am a nightlifer, and I've never seen anything like that. It's really, really cool. It's part of the U of I experience. And maybe that experience is 100 pages. I'm not saying, maybe it's small little blurb, but it's part of it. And so definitely underrated. Definitely underrated. And we've really focused on perfecting that. It wasn't always like that. Now it's, we are very conscious of what we're trying to deliver. And I hope, I think that we do. The lines tell you that we do.
I mean, if people do come, like alumni and people, which is, I don't, surprising to me. It's just like you would literally come here just for that. And now hearing you speak, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it has nothing to do with booze.
Right.
It could if you wanted to and are of age, but it doesn't have to by any means. And because I really have a hard time endorsing activities on the phone, it's alternative, like social, so I like that.
All right, last one.
Last one.
You had some pop culture references, and I'm going to give you one as the final one. So I'm hoping you've seen The Founder.
Yeah.
And
Ray Kroc?
one of your story reminded me that movie a little bit because
He's a horrible person.
no,
Go on.
about how he saw like a bigger picture in something as small as McDonald's, and like even though he was not the one who envisioned it or not the one who created it, he was the one responsible for distributing it and taking it to the scale that it is today. And one of the quotes from that movie during our conversation, it just came to my mind is, you increase the supply and the demand follows, which is true of a lot of the things that we talked about. And so just that movie, The Founder, its principles, underrated or overrated?
So yeah, I mean, this isn't necessarily an academic question, but certainly not one answer. The short answer is it's overrated because, well, the movie itself is overrated simply because it's more of a character movie. Like, you know, Michael Keaton so brilliantly performs that you miss the message. The message is an American success story.
Right.
But that's not the movie. The movie is this character is, you know, that's who you're really focused on. And you're rooting against him. And by the way, that's credit to the writing and what their intended effect was. But so the movie as a whole, overrated for the purposes of the message. Now the message in the McDonald's model in scaling, you know, obviously McDonald's was a part of my life and how many times I ate there. And I know McDonald's headquarters, global, relocated to downtown West Loop, Chicago, Randolph. I do not endorse the big box direction that we're going. Everything is, you know, the number of QSRs, quick serve restaurants, and how much Uber Eats and DoorDash are replacing the prepared meal, the breaking of bread, the engagement of social, the knowledge of ingredients. I don't think we'll look back at that and say we're in the golden era of both dining but also just human behavior.
Right.
So I as a kid, we were spoiled with it. Like McDonald's night was the best. Eddie Murphy did a great joke on McDonald's, but just like the excitement of McDonald's night or fast food night. And that's really, now it's like the norm. I mean, people eat on the go in a Tupperware or in a little plastic container like that. More often than, like, now the rare thing is the dinner table.
Right.
So as a message, I mean, or I shouldn't say as a message, but as what they've managed to accomplish, I don't endorse. Personally.
And I think with that would be a great
Gents.
place to end. Thank
Really
you so much.
appreciate it. Thanks. Nice to meet you guys.
Likewise.
And hopefully it'll be the start of you know, who knows what we end up doing, like any projects or anything like that, and we'll keep you in mind as a model to amplify.
Yes, not in a mentorship or incubator style. I have to watch you struggle.
Not at all.
But,
As a more
course.
of a model of someone who went to UVI, had a lot of ideas, failed a lot, but had the courage to ask people out, to start a business and fail, and to live a life that of amplifying social interaction, which is, you know, if I have to put it in one sentence, that's what I would say.
well, again, my pleasure. Nice to meet you. Nice. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed every single part of the conversation that we had today. I would say, in my opinion, we basically brainstormed ideas to make new companies, and I think it's conversations like these that excite us, and having someone sharing a table and having these conversations with, I think it means a lot to us as someone who's still learning, who's still growing, who's still trying to understand the world around them, and having this opportunity to interact with so many people who have learned from their mistakes and have reached a position where they can give such wonderful advice to the young generation, to the generation that wants to has ideas even bigger than them. And I think that's just a truly humbling experience in general, because you get to learn a lot, and you get to be more comfortable making these mistakes, and you realize that it's all part of the journey, and it'll all work out if you're driven, motivated, and if you just try to have conversations with anyone and everyone around you. So don't be afraid to fail. support the people around you, spread some positivity, and just do what you love. And I'm sure that'll take you to great places. So thank you for watching. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.